So now it's time to buy your chicks. There are two main ways that people buy their chicks. Number one would be online, and this is probably the least used option because most hatcheries require that you order at least like 25 chicks, in order to meet their requirements. So they do this so that the chicks can keep each other warm. That's an awful lot of chickens. How many chickens does a person need anyway? So it depends on the chicken and how much, eggs that they lay. But for the most part, I think about one chick or maybe 1 to 2 per person in your family that eats eggs is pretty much all you need. So unless you have a really giant family, 25 chickens is too many. So most people actually go to a store to get them. But let's talk about, the online really quick first. So if you did decide to order your chicks online, you are starting a big farm or whatever, which is totally cool. When you get them, they ship them to a post office and then they have them held there. They won't leave them at your door or anything else like that. They put them at the post office and then they give you, either a call or a text or, a card in your mail, and you have to go pick them up at the post office just to make sure that they're not going to get too hot in the sun or anything else like that, and that they can stay safe. It's really important that you go pick them up as soon as you possibly can. Because most hatcheries, what they will do is as soon as they hatch, they put them in the boxes and ship them out. So your chicks actually haven't eaten or drinking in 2 to 3, maybe even a little bit longer, maybe even as long as 4 days. So they really need to get unboxed as soon as possible. That's why it's really important to have everything in line, before you actually bring your chicks home. So if you order them, open them up, stick them in their brooder, give them water first, and then after about an hour you can introduce food. But you don't want to have them fill up on food and not water and then become dehydrated. That's why it's better to go ahead and do the water first. And then, from there on you can just put the food in there and whatnot. So that should work out fine. Most people, like I mentioned, will actually go to a store, like a feed supply store or something like that, where they will actually have chicks and then they can pick out just as many as they can use, which for our family, we just bought, new chicks here. And so we bought 6 of them. And that's because we're going to be retiring our old flock because they're a little bit bigger. And their egg production drops off. So just buy how many ever chicks that you need. When you're choosing your chicks in the store, be sure that you're choosing alert ones that look healthy. So you definitely want to choose ones that are alert and active. One time I ended up getting some that just seemed sleepy, and I brought them home, and within a day, a couple of them actually died. And so I brought them back to the store. They said they had a guarantee that they would refund or replace the chicks. And they said that they had what they called a bad batch. They said basically there was a cold snap, and when they had their chicks shipped to them, the chicks had gotten too cold, and so they ended up, not making it. So I learned my lesson the hard way on that one. And, it's okay for the chicks to want a nap and stuff like that, but when you're picking them out in the store, make sure that they're at least alert and active and that they're moving around and eating and drinking before you bring them home, because you definitely want to make sure that you're getting healthy chicks. Especially if you have kids, as sensitive as mine are, because they're going to grow attached to them really quickly. And so it's just going to be a sad thing if any of them die. So make sure you're choosing, really good, healthy chickens from the start. It is also best to make sure that you buy all of your chicks at once too, because chickens have what's called a pecking order. Basically what happens is when you buy chicks that are different sizes or ages, the bigger ones are more of a bully to the smaller ones. And so one time I even had a chick that was even just 1 day apart from the others. It was stepping on the smaller one and almost looked like it was trying to kill it. So definitely make sure that your chicks are all around the same age, pretty close anyway, and that they won't end up being too much of a bully or hurting the other chicks. There are some things to consider when you are choosing your breed. It varies a lot from chicken to chicken, and I've made this mistake several times in the past. So some are more friendly than others, some are more loud than others. So if you have a family and you want a friendly chicken, that's something you're going to want to consider, because if you end up with a bunch of mean chickens and your kids don't like them, that might be a problem. If you live in a city, you might want a chicken that's not going to be too loud, so that's definitely something to consider. Some chickens are more heat or cold tolerant, so if you live in an area that has really high heat, you're going to want chickens that have lighter feathers and stuff that can help keep them, from overheating. Whereas if you live in a colder climate, you might want to get a chicken that's better suited to your cold climates. chickens that have like really big combs or big wattles, even hens sometimes can get really big combs and wattles depending on the breed. And the further out that they go, the more likely it is for those chickens to get frostbite. So I have learned to try and choose breeds that have sort of low profile combs and wattles so that when it gets cold, they don't end up getting frostbite. So that's definitely something to consider. Egg production is another one. Not all chickens are the same. Sometimes chickens will lay more eggs, some will lay less. And so you want to, if you're, getting these chickens for egg production, make sure that you're getting one that, lays a fair amount of eggs. That way it's definitely worth your effort. Some will eat more feed than others, so that's another thing to consider. Like the commercial white eggs that come from the grocery store are all from one specific breed, and this breed is a really light breed. It's really small and skinny. They eat, not a whole lot of food, but they lay eggs like crazy. So, this is something to consider. Sometimes chickens will eat a ton of food and lay almost no eggs, and sometimes it's the opposite, and sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. And speaking of in the middle, you obviously want to identify your purpose for why you're even getting these chickens. So if you're getting an egg layer, obviously choose ones that are good egg layers. If you're choosing, if you want to raise meat birds, choose broilers, ones that are specifically intended for meat. And then there are what they call dual purpose breeds. This is going to be the chickens that have the ability to both lay a lot of eggs or eggs in general, and they can be good for egg production, but also be good for meat later on. So yeah, that is something else to consider. So yeah, after you've explored the different breeds and everything and you've bought your chicks, there's really only one step left. And that's to enjoy your little chickens, because they're going to grow up fast. So you might as well, enjoy them while you have them. And if you can play with them, I would highly recommend doing so, because playing with them when they're little gets them used to you and your family, and they will be more friendly in the future if they get, handled a lot when they're little. Depending on the breed, of course. Some breeds, even if you handle them a lot as chicks, they won't be friendly, and vice versa. But for the most part, within the same breeds, the chicks that are handled are more friendly than the chicks that aren't. So if you want them to be something that you want to be friendly, then handle them. And again, if you're, having meat birds or whatever, you definitely don't want to be handling those because you don't want to grow attached to them. So anyway, there is my take on keeping chicks and all the stuff that you need in place, and then how to choose the right ones and making sure that you get the right amount of them for your family. They're really small and cute now, so it's easy to get carried away. So definitely, make sure that you're considering how many you need in the beginning and then only buying that many. So when we went into the feed supply store, we only needed 6 chickens and I left with 6 chickens. So anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful to you. I'm Frugal Green Girl, and we'll see you next time.